Innovation, imagination, wonder. These are just some of the words used to describe Dr. Harvey Passes. Dr. Passes explores interesting people and ideas that will stimulate you. He questions the people who develop, create, and employ novel concepts in business and everyday lives. He especially loves to speak with successful people. How did they do it? How can you do it too? So let's join Dr. Harvey Passes in his quest of wonder and curiosity as we watch Dr. Harvey Passes Presents.
I recently did a show on a life-altering experience with two gentlemen to explain some interesting things about my family that the younger generation of my family, my cousins especially, we did not know. And it was just amazing. And during this show, where we showcased an organization called the Pride of Judea, and in the early 1900s, it was known for its children's home, and it was an amazing organization. And then it kind of morphed into becoming an organization that helps individuals for different kind of mental illnesses that need to be cared for. It's a great organization. During that show, I met two interesting people, and one individual that I met is a gentleman you're going to meet again, and his name is David Prever. First, let's welcome him back, and then I'll remind you as to why he's such an interesting individual. David, hi.
Hi, Dr. Passes.
Harvey, come on.
Oh, Harvey.
Okay, great.
Yeah, you did tell me that.
Right, thank you. It's great to have you back again.
Thank you.
It's most interesting what you do. So before you and I get into what you do, let me tell my viewer what you do again, and that you do so well. David Prever, aside from being a teacher in the New York City school system, for many years, he's also you're licensed and certified in phys ed as well as special ed.
Yes.
Okay. But he has this other love, this other passion in his life. Is that a right way of describing it?
Absolutely.
And you've been doing it since you were 16, you said?
Since I was 16.
It is an area called genealogy. No, it's not the science of learning about genies. Genealogy is an area that does what?
Studying people's families, trying to go as far back as possible when records permit, and also trying to go forward and finding cousins you didn't know existed.
Mm-hmm. So it's just fantastic. When I met you and you discovered this interesting information about my uncle that I knew nothing about, who died at 13. It turned out he died in this catastrophic wave that took 40 children off the beach and threw them in Far Rockaway, I believe, into the water.
Rockaway Beach.
Rockaway Beach.
Or Edgemere, I believe.
Edgemere. And 7 children died and 33 kids were saved. And I didn't even know anything about this, and it's through all of your research. And in my conversations with you, you started saying, well, I've got a lot more information about your family you don't know about. And I was absolutely just shocked, and to use the phrase I used previously, blown away by what you came up with. First, before we get into that information, and you have some interesting little bombs to lay at me today, that I have not seen any of this stuff yet. Let's just talk a little bit about genealogy first. Genealogy, does one go to school to become a genealogist? Are there courses? There are associations? How does one become a genealogist?
Actually, there are a lot of books out there.
Right.
Many, many, many books on the subject by some very well-known authors. Mm-hmm. I just will quickly say when I became interested in 16, it was actually Alex Haley's Roots that got me very interested.
He did that. He did all that research into his family.
Yes, he did, and that was actually a big boom in genealogy when Roots came out. I think there was just a tremendous growth. I mean, people were already dabbling in it, but it wasn't until Roots where it really took root.
See, what always bothered me, very funny, but it always bothered me when people would speak about that, because before I saw it, I thought it was about the history of dentistry, Roots. Anyway, let's continue with the show. Okay, bump. So you've been very interested in this, and you've learned, and I would imagine when you were 16, 20, 22, 23, 24, you had books to go through. Today, you rarely even need a book.
Internet.
The internet can really shave down the time like that? Is that correct?
It can, and I mean, there's just so much on the internet. And to go back a little bit to your question about courses, there are courses. I mean, you can go on the internet and find out, studying genealogy. Just put in the word genealogy, and it will come out with
Pages.
thousands and thousands of sites, websites, and it's just the growth is phenomenal. The growth of societies, the growth, there's so many professional genealogists out there who will search your family tree for you. I mean, it's just become a very interesting, and just people are very much into it. People more and more want to know where they came from.
Yeah, well, I certainly do. Well, we're going to get into that in a minute. But I must say this should also be of great interest to attorneys, especially estate attorneys, when they want to look for people and they want to understand who did what and when, and are you really an uncle or an aunt or a niece or a nephew? And a genealogist would be invaluable in seeking out documentation to authenticate.
Absolutely.
Claims being made, so to speak. Terrific. Talk a little bit about my family. In doing this research that Stan Friedland from the Pride of Judea asked you to do for the families of the 7 boys who lost their lives, and one of them being mine, you discovered what about my family? You got papers and papers here.
Well,
take over. Just talk to me.
Okay. It wasn't actually my main thought was, of course, finding at least the family members, 1 or 2 family members of each of the 7 families. But it wasn't until I contacted you and thanked you for, in front of your whole family, for the Passes family not being Cohn or Shapiro, because those families will be naturally a lot more difficult. I mean, Smith, Jones, when you have an uncommon name, the job is going to be much, much easier. So you had asked me to look up your family a little bit more.
Right.
And some of the common documents we want to look for. And these are documents that are, of course, in the public domain. You can search for them, you can go into archives or into courts, and you can actually obtain the documents. They might charge you copying fees. If you do it by mail, they might charge you like postage and maybe a $10 fee to get the copy, to get it certified. I don't think they'll just do it like that. I think they want to send you a certified copy so you can use it for any legal, possible legal reasons. But one of the earliest documents you want to find, or the most important document, is a person's naturalization paper, when they were naturalized to be a citizen. Now, of course, not every person became naturalized. Some people would decide they just would live here and, not become a citizen. But of course, with that, they wouldn't have the right to vote, things like that. So a person who comes to America wants to be a true blood citizen.
Especially in the late 1800s and early 1900s.
Exactly, when the great
immigration,
of immigration.
Right.
So one of the first documents I found in the Kings County Supreme Court in Brooklyn on Adams Street was your grandfather's petition for naturalization.
That's my father's father.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And his declaration of intention, which gave, on the declaration of intention, his date of arrival, his place of birth, his age, his address at the time, which was 98 Liberty Avenue in Brownsville, East New York, the ship that he came on, listing of his wife's name. My wife's name is Annie Fanny, and she lives with me. That he's.
What's the date on this?
The date of his declaration was May 12th of 1916.
Oh, so he came here in 1916?
No, he came here.
Oh, that's the declaration.
Yeah, that's the declaration.
When did he come here?
Date of arrival was, and I'll tell you that in 1 second, was, bear with me, please.
Sure.
January 13th of 1908.
So in 1908. So he was living here from 08 till 1916.
Yes.
As a non-citizen.
Exactly.
And that's when he became a citizen, or he declared?
He declared his citizenship. Then his petition, which is dated November 4th of, it looks like 1920 or 25. The handwriting's hard to read. But he had his petition. And then whatever date after that, let's see over here, that he took his oath to be a citizen on July 7th, 1921.
Let me see these.
Sure.
Very interesting, because my grandmother had died around then.
Yes, 1923.
1923 is when
Yes.
she died. So you know more about my family than I do.
That happens.
This is absolutely amazing. This is just amazing, looking at all these things here. Unbelievable. What does it say here? That my grandfather was really the brother of Rockefeller? No.
That would
And that
be interesting.
and that we have one of the heirs to the estate? No, okay, no. Okay, so it said here he originally came from Russia, and then from Russia, I think you told me, which I knew, he went to England. Okay,
Yes.
It says, okay, immigrated to the United States from Liverpool, England. That's by the, what's the name of that ship, the Carpania? That's a sister ship, I think, to, I may be wrong, either Lusitania. This is amazing.
But you can actually go to a website and look at photographs of the ship.
Huh.
They have websites, and one of the greatest websites that people use is Ancestry.com. And
Really?
there's- Oh, yes.
This is just amazing. Okay, so what else do we have now?
Okay. One of the other documents is your grandmother's death certificate,
Oh,
which, you can pretty much see the information it gives there.
birthplace, London, England. Her occupation, housewife. She died at only age 41. Wow. Wow.
No, I think, if I'm not mistaken, her reason for death was
Kidney
you're
problem?
a doctor.
Let me read it.
Nephritic toxemia of pregnancy.
Right. So while she was pregnant, she had a problem with her nephritic toxemia. Pregnancy means that her kidney had gone bad and spilled over, and she became poisoned. So there would have been an eighth.
So
It was 7.
people can get a health history. A lot of people do genealogy, and I should have noted this. This is important. People do genealogy to get health histories of
Right.
their family.
Wow, interesting. And so her birthplace of her father and her mother was Russia also. Interesting. And then they came to England. So it's the same thing like my grandfather. Oh, I didn't know any of this stuff. This is just amazing.
Now, the interesting thing is, as the 3 major documents people look for when they're doing genealogy are
Yes.
birth certificates,
Death certificate.
marriage records,
marriage.
and death certificates. And it's usually a known fact that the later the record, for example, a death certificate, the information is going to possibly be a little less accurate. Because you think it's the time of a person's death, and depending who the informant is, usually they're going to be upset.
Right.
So they're not going to always give the most accurate information. That's not always true. But
In many cases.
many people I've heard of they would say that the death certificate gives this fact when another fact was the truth.
Right.
So, people are under duress at a time of death. So
Sure.
that document, you're really not going to trust the information 100%. The next best document is, of course, the marriage license. That's happy.
Right.
That's a lot of happiness there. And,
Right.
of course, the birth certificate is your most trustworthy document.
Right. So what do you have in respect of next? Certificate of, you got a death certificate.
I still have death certificates. The
Oh,
other
great.
one is, sorry.
Go ahead.
The other one is of your grandfather, Hyman.
Okay.
And
something
we're
to
going to get
read?
to happier documents for
Okay,
a moment.
go
But,
ahead.
it pretty much, now here, it's giving your great-grandparents' names as Gottlieb and Ida Nathan.
Wow.
So at least you get names there. Again, you're not 100% sure it's accurate until you get maybe the marriage license. And in the case of your family, it seems that your grandparents, Hyman and Fanny, did get married in England. So it would be a matter of going to the appropriate archive there and getting the marriage record from that archive. But it does show that your grandfather was a salesman of dry goods. And that's going to be an interesting point when I get to one of the happier documents. And a salesman of dry goods when he passed away in 1948, born in Vilna, Russia. And the informant, it would give the informant's name, which is usually a help if you don't know your family. You'll find other relatives
Right.
under the informant. So here it was Samuel Passes,
My
your
uncle.
uncle. and it lists him as son, and it gives his address in Brooklyn. And, of course, the place of death, the cemetery was Mount Lebanon Cemetery.
Which is where my Uncle Asher is buried.
Exactly, and where the other victims from that 1933 drowning are buried.
Okay, what else have we got?
And then, of course, Asher's death certificate,
Yeah.
which, of course, gives the home, Pride of Judea, orphan home, 992 Dumont Avenue. It pretty much has the information that we knew that your family would probably know: cause of death, accidental drowning.
Right.
Now the happier documents.
Yeah, please.
Yes. Okay. One document that I was able to get from Ancestry.com was your Uncle Abraham Lewis's passport. And it has a photo of him. I don't know if the camera can...
Let's see. Well, hold on. Let me hold up. There's a way for me to hold it up. Right. Okay. I'm not going to have the camera zoom in.
Oh, sure.
But let me see. Description of applicant, 5'5". He was 15 years of age. Oh, my God. So this is when I believe he was a British subject.
Yes. Yes.
And he naturalized.
Yes.
So, okay, and he came to the United States, and he was born in England, and he came across from the Mauritania, according to this.
Yes.
So, this is interesting. So, this is July 7th, 1921, I believe. Oh, wow, there's a lot of goings on here. It says over here, 1877, he was born in my grandfather.
Yeah, your grandfather.
So my grandfather was born in 1877. Interesting. Fantastic. And his daughter and his son will be interested to see all this. You know, Abe, keep going. What else have we got?
Okay, next document, and this one I love.
We've got about 10 minutes left.
Oh, sure. When I showed this to your family, they loved it. This is the World War I draft registration of your grandfather.
So he was drafted in.
It doesn't necessarily mean that they served, but it meant that I think all people, whether they were citizens or not, had to register for the draft if they were a certain age.
Service, right.
But the part of it that your family loved was his present occupation is peddling. The address of his business was all over Brooklyn.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, my God. Let me see that.
Which is interesting.
And peddling. Oh, my God. And the date is 1918. And peddling all over Brooklyn. Oh, my God. My family will go crazy when they see this. Unbelievable. Interesting. What else did you find?
Now, to go even further back, now we're on the other side of the ocean.
England.
We're in England. And so far, the only documents I was able to find from Ancestry.com was, and I don't work for Ancestry.com, but they are fantastic because anybody who's watching your show could just go onto Ancestry.com and put in the name. And they also have something called a soundex. If you don't know the exact spelling,
you could say
or if it goes by a code, by the first letter, and then all the letters, all the consonants are given a code letter. So any names that sound close to passes,
it'll come up with it.
It will come up with it.
What have you got there?
The 1881, 1891, and 1901 English census.
Okay.
That shows mainly the Klenowitz family.
I thought it was with an M. I thought it was Klemowitz.
Again, they could have made mistakes because in the soundex coding, M and N's, I believe, are the same number.
I see.
So because Clem, especially for the name Prever. Originally, my name was spelled Priewer, and it was changed by my grandparents in Europe with the V. But I've seen when I've gone onto websites, I would put down the V or put down the W. The soundex code is the same,
right?
Whether it's Prever or Prever.
So we have in the census in 81, 91, and 01.
Okay, in 1901, it's giving I believe, your great-grandparents, Abraham Klenowitz, his wife Rachel, and their children Annie, who's your grandmother.
Great.
And her sister Annetta, brother Judah, who I later found out died in 1903. He was 15. He was the only son of Abraham and Rachel. And sister Alice, who I found in one of the U.S. censuses living with the Passes family. Harriet and Sophie. So that was your family there. It gives their occupation. It gives the street they were living at the Spitalfields civil parish of St. Stephen's, in the municipal borough of Stepney, in the ward or district of Spitalfields East, in the parliamentary division of Whitechapel.
So that's not in London.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, administrative county London. So
Okay.
I'm not sure
So
exactly.
it's within the
Exactly.
region.
But it pretty much shows all the families that were living there. They were living at 116 Commercial Street in that particular area. But it gives Abraham Klenowicz's occupation, picture frame maker. It says that he was born in Russia. And it's very hard to, you would have to look at it maybe with a magnifying glass because it's very...
You're right. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Whoever wrote this has really good handwriting.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Good
The
God.
handwriting is...
Good God. Isn't and so now you're going further back with what you've got in your hands.
Yes, yes, yes. And then we have at 74 Sclater Street in the same area. This time it's Belknap Gardens, I believe. It's Abraham Klenowicz, his wife Rachel, their son Judah. So I was mistaken. He's okay. He was. I'm sorry. I'm going backwards.
Right.
And then you've got Annie F for Annie Fanny.
Right.
You've got Amy. It looks like, and then you've got Alice, or it could be Annie. For it wouldn't be two Annies in the same family. And then you've got a Kitty Cone, who looks like there was a Kitty Cone, and Hyman H. Klenowicz, who was a brother, and Meyer Klenowicz, who was another brother to Abraham.
Wow. And Abraham was my great-grandfather.
Exactly.
So then what have you got in 81?
81, you've got the family, David Klenowicz, with his wife Alice, a son Hyman W., a son Abraham Lewis, daughter, looks like a daughter, or maybe a daughter-in-law, Sarah R., and then you've got a lodger by the name of Samuel Nathan. So it's, as you're doing research, you'll be able to sort out, but you already know pretty much who these relatives are. But for anybody who's looking at this document for the first time, you, of course, have little tidbits of information. It's all sleuth work, so it's just a matter of just getting that little bit of information and knowing what archives to go to and what to look at.
It's not any different than being a diagnostician and diagnosing an illness. You first look at the facts, you get good history from speaking to the patient, look at the facts, put it together, and come up with a diagnosis. It's not enough just to see one thing. So you have these names in front of you, but then you start putting them together and seeing other names and other things. And you put them all together, you can come up with an appreciation and an understanding of what all this information means. That's now. What is this? This is the.
Oh, this was just one sheet that I forgot to give you. That's part of the. That's actually the Declaration of Intention. Oh, but this is showing. Yes, this is one. There was one reason why I still held this.
Which is?
This actually has the attachment, which is the certificate of arrival.
Oh.
Of your grandfather. Normally, if a person arrived in the country under a different name, how many people's names were changed at Ellis Island?
Right.
So, if, for instance, I believe you had told me earlier that the Passes side of the family, the name wasn't originally Passes, or did it?
Well, in England, it still is Passes, but when they came from Russia to England, it was a different name. And Passes something, Ski or Wits or whatever it was, and the officer, the immigration officer, changed their. When the story goes, they changed the name to says your new name is Passes. Welcome to the world. Welcome to England. So that was basically it.
And you would be able to learn that from records in England. Now I don't know exactly how records in England work, but I'm not sure how similar they are to the United States. Mm-hmm. But you would be able to find some kind of immigration record in England for when you're. I don't know what duration the Passes family lived in England, But that would be something that you would be able to find out, either through city directories
Right.
or any
Well,
documents.
but it's also clear that on my grandmother's side, they lived in England for years.
Yes.
They lived in England for years, whereas on my father's father's side, it may have been somewhat less. And somewhere in the documentation, I think it'll explain when he came to England. Maybe 1877.
No, he was born in 1877.
He was born in 1877. I see. Here it is. I see. Date of arrival 1908. The Carmania. If it was Carpathia, Carmania.
Again, they could make errors on the names. They really, whoever was writing the documents could have just misspelled it or whatever reason. That's one of the biggest problems in genealogy is misspellings of names. And when an immigrant says it, not everybody's going to understand it exactly the way it's supposed to be pronounced. So you have plenty of misspellings.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you have other information, or right now we're
that's
out?
it. But
okay. But go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was going to say that, an important thing to stress also is anybody can do genealogy.
Yeah, but you've got to have the desire, want to do it, and have the patience. I mean, many people just don't want to put in the effort and the energy to do all this stuff. It's a lot of detailed work. You got to read and look and understand. It's not enough just to have a declaration of intention document, because every single thing on the line here has a story. I mean, you talk about I was born in Vilna, Russia. It says over here. I mean, where is Vilna, Russia? Why did he leave? Are there other family in Vilna, Russia? What was the name in Russia? Yeah, I mean, how long was he in England? When did he come to England from Vilna, Russia? I mean, this is one thing begets another question, Am I right?
Yes.
And that's where your sleuthing comes up, and your ability to like the details and to enjoy every single door you keep opening up or another chapter you keep going through. Because I find it fascinating because about what you just dug up. And I think this is absolutely amazing stuff. I think you're talented. I think you're interesting and interested. And one of the best compliments I can give a guest on my show is to say that you've taught me something. I learned something from you. That to me is the highest praise, because this show, as far as I'm concerned, is all about learning. And learning things that ordinarily one wouldn't get a chance to learn. And you have brought to the show an understanding of genealogy and to explain how it's done. And then you've used me as an example, which I think is just fantastic, And I think people would enjoy using your services, especially, I think, attorneys involved or like even in missing people stuff, things like that. Because you can just put the information in and come up with so much facts that can lead people to a conclusion, which is terrific. We got about a minute left. Is there any parting comments that you'd like to present to my viewer so people can learn more about this?
Well, it doesn't matter what ethnic group you belong to, whether you're Irish, whether you're African American, whether you're Latino,
Jewish.
There's every ethnic group is pretty much represented now in genealogical societies or in anything having to do with searching your family back.
Right.
So, if you have the will to do it, go ahead and do it.
Well, I, for one, am thankful that you have not only the will, but the desire and the passion, because the passion is the fuel that keeps the will going. And without that passion, you're just out of gas. And guess what? So show's over. David,
thank you.
Terrific. I really appreciate you taking the time from your busy schedule to come down. And again, you presented me with such great information. And in the future, maybe we'll have other shows that we can do where you can dig into other things that might be of interest to the viewing audience as well. Okay? Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. And I hope you got a lot out of this, because you can do the same thing. All of the things that David Prever mentioned, you can dig up yourself, or if not, contact me and I'll tell you how to contact him. Doesn't matter. It's easy to do, and it's fun, and it's just painstaking. Thanks very much. Gotta go. Dr. Pass is saying, whatever you do, just like David Prever, do it with passion, or what's the use? See you again next time. It's great.